Okay, great.
So I want to welcome all of you tonight on this cold November night, this gray and cold November night. I welcome you to our speaker series. We have Rabbi Nicole Guzik, and we're really looking forward to her conversation. And we have how many family to family classes are going on right now, Tim? Tim is our program manager. Just share how many?
Well, we have two classes in progress right now, and actually we have another peer class for members of our community who identify as having mental health conditions. We have a peer class starting right now that was actually, we were connected with through NAMI California, and it's a program called the CONREP program, which is providing services for the justice involved, people who've been incarcerated. So that class literally started an hour ago. That's pretty cool. And Aaron, perhaps you'd like to talk about the class we just launched last night, or will be launching next week. Sorry.
That's okay. Yeah, we're launching a program called Homefront, which is similar to our family to family class. Um, it's the curriculum is very similar, but it's primarily focusing on military families. So, having a loved one that is served in the military or active military, veterans are welcome to join as well, but really specifically geared to the needs of military families. So, my husband and I will be teaching that, and he's a U.S. Army veteran. So, we're very proud to be doing that.
What a wonderful experience for you and your husband to heal veterans together. That would be such a powerful, positive experience. So I welcome all of you for being here tonight to listen to the rabbi. And I, those of you that are here tonight are those people that are interested in growing and maybe expanding their spiritual view. I've always said myself personally, having a mentally ill adult child is the most profound spiritual experience I've ever had in my life. It's truly a spiritual teaching and a spiritual blessing for me. So, without further ado, I want to again say welcome to all of you, and I'm going to introduce you to our executive director, Aaron Raftery, who's going to introduce our guest speaker tonight. And this is our executive director who started the whole campaign, Free Your Me, throughout the state of California, a photographic campaign, which is about being real, being open, talking about yourself and your illness, because it frees other people up to talk, to free their me and be real back too. So I really appreciate that campaign, Aaron, and you did the whole thing by yourself. So thank you so much, and on many different levels too. So Aaron, our executive director, is going to take the meeting over at this time.
Thank you, Sharon. Our trailblazing leader, Sharon Dunas. Thank you so much. Um, we welcome you again all this evening, and thank you to Janice Black Warner for um, providing the funds for us to have this speaker series and really offer our community just trailblazers in the field like Rabbi Nicole Guzik, which we're so grateful to have this evening. So I'm just going to read a little bit about our guest speaker this evening. We're very honored to have you. So Rabbi Nicole Guzik has served as the rabbi at Sinai Temple for 12 years and 4 years prior as Sinai Temple's rabbinic intern. She focuses on innovative women's programming, young family retention and recruitment. So a lot of youth education, which I know Tim Davis is going to be giving her a call afterwards so we can work on our Ending the Silence programs together. And this past August, the rabbi launched the Sinai Temple Mental Health Center to address the mental and emotional health of Sinai Temple's community and beyond. So we're very, very grateful for you and your efforts to launch that for your community. We're excited to partner with you on other programs for that. I know you're also pursuing your master's degree in marriage and family therapy, which is very exciting. You are also a mother of three. We've had a Zoom call, and we were very simpatico in our alignment of life right now and could talk for our ages about our children and mental health and the effects of COVID. But tonight, we're here to listen to Rabbi Nicole talk to us about how to cope with our own mental health and the expectations expectations of the holidays, and how we can best do that for ourselves and for our family members. So a round of applause for Rabbi Nicole Guzik. We're very excited to have you here and listen and share and learn from you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Aaron and Sharon, and to Tim and to all of you. It's really an honor to be here and thank you. Okay, spotlighted to see all of you. It really is. It's a thrill to partner with NAMI in this particular way, to know that I'm with like-minded company, and to know that we have this incredible organization that NAMI offers us resources and information and peer support and mental health awareness every single day. You are a true blessing to this community. So as you heard in the introduction, I am a rabbi here in West Los Angeles for 12 years, right here in Westwood. I work at Sinai Temple. I work with rabbis David Wolpe and Erez Sherman, who happens to be my husband. I also work with Cantor Marcus Feldman. And I think, like many of you, over the course of the pandemic, we have been running on a certain sense of adrenaline. Often as clergy, we say to each other, okay, if I can just get through this week, if I can just get through this Shabbat, and often if I can just get through this life cycle. And we would say this over the course of the pandemic. Sometimes we still say it because no clergy has ever experienced a mental or physical or economic health crisis quite like this one. And yet, as I say that, while we weren't able to predict what our synagogue would look like living through a pandemic, thank God we started to imagine what the mental health of the synagogue would look like as we inched back towards, can we call this normalcy? Are we getting there? But we realized as congregants began to return, as they started to re-enter the doors of the place of worship they once called home, the congregation and the congregants that we once knew, that the clergy, the congregants, we were all different. We've all experienced the pandemic collectively, but here we were coming individually, reuniting with perhaps very different emotions and perhaps very different opinions about the ways we would still feel about COVID-19, some returning with anger, some returning with sorrow, and many just praying that everything would turn out okay. As you heard from Aaron, as a side note, through this whole realization, over the summer, our synagogue created a mental health center. And we're so fortunate that we were able to hire a full-time social worker to explore those exact conversations that I mentioned. And I'm happy to speak about the mental health center later if we have questions. It's one of my deep passions. But this evening, what I wanted to share with you were some thoughts about returning, reuniting, knowing that for some of us, the upcoming holidays may be our very first time either back in a place of worship. It may be your very first time with family and friends we haven't seen in months, and I'm hopeful that I can offer some words of guidance. Guidance for those in which those words ring true. Perhaps you're returning home or reuniting with loved ones for the first time. Or maybe you're the one that's opening up your doors and providing the space for reunions and memory making to take place once again. So I wanted to share a story because about 6 months ago, when our synagogue finally returned back to in-person services, I remember standing at the doors of the sanctuary for about 30 minutes. And for each person that would walk through the doors, I would say the phrase, "Welcome home." And then I stood on our bima, which is an elevated stage in which we conduct services, and I looked out at the congregation. Maybe there were 30 people there. And I said the words, "Shabbat Shalom." Now you have to remember, prior to that, it's a no-brainer. You say Shabbat Shalom at the beginning of a service and at the end of a service. That's what we do. But this time saying Shabbat Shalom felt entirely different because I actually heard congregants say Shabbat Shalom back. Because somewhat like this, for months on end, I had said Shabbat Shalom to a screen. We didn't even know about Zoom yet. It was just me staring out to a YouTube screen with no one responding back, not knowing if anyone was even watching or paying attention. And so to have people's faces, to have friends say those words back to me, tears started to form and many of us began to cry. It was as if a piece of my heart had been stitched back together and I was finally back in the place I needed to be. But I didn't know 6 months ago that it was only the beginning. Because now, 6 months later, I'm beginning to realize how different reunions and returns are for each of us. Over our holidays, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, remember, I already felt at home. I had already been in that synagogue and in that sanctuary for several months. But for thousands of our congregants, that was their very first time back in the synagogue. They were on a completely different emotional plane than the others who had spent time praying in the pews. And I'm wondering, and I'll be interested to hear if you're willing to share later on, if you may be in a similar boat. Perhaps you've seen some friends and family every day for the past 6 months, but a cousin or a niece or a friend that you'll be having Thanksgiving dinner with, maybe that's their very first time engaging with you or engaging with loved ones. Maybe in November or December, it will be your very first time to go back to your place of worship, unsure of what to expect or how to feel. So interestingly enough, the first tip that I suggest pre-reuniting, I think we should all own the fact that in general, reunions are hard. No matter our family dynamic, reunions are hard. I wanted to share a story. Summer of 2019 was my 20-year high school reunion. I would love to hear some of your reunion stories. But I want to give you some context. I grew up in Orange County. I'm a native Californian. I grew up in a large public high school. And these co-chairs of the high school reunion planned a party for an early Saturday evening, and I don't travel on Shabbat. So I thought, okay, I'm probably not going to be able to go, but if I go late Saturday night, okay, it's my 20-year high school reunion, I have to go. But there was something holding me back from RSVPing. And so those poor co-chairs every single day sent reminders. One co-chair sent pictures of what we looked like in 1999. And they started to send superlatives for the senior class. Most popular, prettiest eyes, best couple. And the one that everyone wanted in high school, most likely to be successful. But as each superlative came out, I noticed that there were more cancellations on the Facebook page. More people were writing in and responding to the co-chairs. Oh, I forgot. I'm out of town that night. Oh, sorry, I can't get a sitter. And people just blanketly letting them know they will not be attending the high school reunion. So finally, the head co-chair wrote the following: who cares what you look like? We're all different. We all have problems. Everyone has changed. Just come out and enjoy a night together. But fast forward to the night before the reunion, the co-chair sent a final note. Sorry, everyone. Not enough people have responded to the invitation. Reunion canceled. Hope to see you at the, I love Tim's response. Hope to see you at the 30th. So at the end, a few people got together, but I started to think about what were the reasons why people decided not to attend or why nobody responded. It seems a little too coincidental that the declines and the cancellations started as soon as those superlatives started to come out. Because who cares if you're not that successful? And what if you're no longer the most popular person in the room? We certainly don't look exactly the way we did in high school. But let's fast forward to tonight, November 3rd, 2021, and all those impending reunions over the holidays. And maybe our questions are a little different, but the attached meaning and the intrinsic emotions, I don't think they're very different. In re-entering the world, we ask ourselves, when I see my loved ones and my friends this year, whether it's tomorrow or over the holidays, whatever it may be, will I feel safe? Will I be judged or accepted? Will whomever I am celebrating with understand my discomfort or the discomfort of my loved one? Am I really ready to jump back into a life that feels a little bit like a charade? Maybe it's a life that's somewhat hard for myself to recognize. And so perhaps for all of us, there's a small sense of comfort, if you will, knowing that everyone is reevaluating their place in the world right now. That reunions are hard. Reunions are awkward. And sometimes just by admitting out loud, which I'm trying to do tonight, myself, offering a little bit of vulnerability, we all feel a little judged and we all feel a little confused. And so there's a sense of commonality of starting out in the same playing field. And if you're the one hosting, I know it sounds silly, but it might even be worth saying something at the start of dinner. Something like, so we're all coming back for Thanksgiving, and it's a little different. A little or a lot has changed, and that's okay. The Bible shares a poignant lesson about reunions. It's one of my favorite scenes in the Torah, the scene in a Bible that's so often missed or skipped over. Remember young Joseph. He's estranged from his father Jacob for many years. And this is the Joseph that is named as his father's favorite. Remember the whole coat of many colors? And because of their jealousy, Joseph's brothers throw him in a pit, pretty much left to die. And yet, as the story goes, Joseph instead rises from slave to a grand vizier in Egypt. He's second in command to Pharaoh. And then finally, years and years later, we witness a reunion between father and son, and Joseph can't control himself. He flings himself onto his father, onto Jacob's neck, and he begins to sob. I think we can all understand that. He begins to cry, if you will, uncontrollably. So you hear about Joseph crying, but you don't hear anything about Jacob's tears. So you hear about the son crying, but you don't hear about the father. There's a commentator, Rabbi Samson Raphael Hirsch, who points out that visibly only Joseph seems to weep. Hirsch explains Jacob didn't cry. Why? Because he had spent his entire life crying. Jacob spent years believing that his favorite son was killed by a murderous beast. And so Jacob's mourning began the day he thought Joseph had left the physical world. Jacob's grief was on a different timeline altogether, one that didn't mirror the bawling son that sat before him. And so, if you will, this is the second tip that I'm hopeful we'll remember. When entering these holidays, when entering this holiday season and reuniting with friends and with family, I think there's bound to be a misreading of our actions, a misreading of our emotional output. So what exactly do I mean by that? We may be ready to jump into the arms of a parent or a cousin or a friend we haven't seen in 18 months or 2 years. And that relative or friend, they just might not be able to match our own emotional expressions. Or perhaps it's the opposite. Someone is so excited to be with you. Someone is so excited to be in your home, but there's something holding us back from showing that same kind of emotional reaction. It's not a lack of wanting to be together. Some of us have cried for a year and a half, and only now some people are able to release their tears. But I think we learn from the Torah, from the Bible, that neither emotional output is better or worse. We are all experiencing a journey of healing at different times and in different ways. But I think it's far too easy to misinterpret our actions as intentional wounds. Try to remember Jacob. It isn't fair to assume that Jacob's lack of tears represented his lack of emotions in seeing his son for the very first time. And who knows? We may end up being surprised by our own emotional reactions, not realizing that some of us have been crying for the past 18 months, while others have repressed emotions and are just beginning to cry for the very first time. And so I ask us to allow room in this holiday season for what we call in Hebrew, dan lekach zechut. It's a little benefit of the doubt. The high or low emotional output may not match what's actually happening with the person you are encountering. Some of you may be familiar with the famous work of psychoanalyst Dr. Donald Winnicott. I don't know if that sounds familiar, Winnicott. Very, Sharon. Okay, good. So Sharon, you can speak towards it.
Yes.
So what I think is fascinating about Winnicott is that he's well known for writing about the well-being of children in World War II. And at the time, he acted as a consultant for mothers that sent their babies to safer locations and then welcomed those babies that turned into children home after the war. So Winnicott writes, when children come home, they are not necessarily going to fall into or fit nicely into the holes they made when they went away, for the simple reason that the hole has disappeared. The process must take time and time must be allowed. And he cautioned that a rush back into the hole once constructed, no longer there, will result in hurt feelings and mismanaged expectations. However, listen to what he writes, which is, I think, so applicable for 2021. Given time, on the other hand, feelings can develop in their natural way, and suddenly a mother may be rewarded by a genuine hug that was worth waiting for. The children needs permission to ease back into a world that, while previously altered, still holds the potential for development, a world that transforms and molds according to the emotional change needs of the child. So what's the third tip? According to Winnicott in 2021, let's give each other permission to ease back into an altered world. We may be anxious to jump back into what we call normalcy, whatever that may be. We may be anxious to return to the same traditions and recipes and songs and prayers, but we have to remember that the world has changed. For many of us, March 2020 became the pivotal time in no matter what our age. We morphed into children. And in a way, we were sent away from a world we once knew, a world filled with embrace and loved ones and handshakes and uncovered smiles, a world without wondering about vaccinations and polarized views. God only knows if those exact parameters of that previous world will ever enter our psyche, but it doesn't really matter. Because as this world resettles, we admit we've changed. We've all suffered in a way from the trauma of evacuation. The holes, the places that we once knew potentially don't exist. And so healthy, meaningful reunions over the holidays become less about being on the same emotional plane as someone else and more, and I hope you're listening, about creating moments where relationships can start new chapters, where relationships can create shared memories. And so a suggestion, what would it look like if you sat down at Thanksgiving or a holiday meal, whatever gathering that's coming, and thought through what could a new tradition look like? A new tradition. Yes, perhaps engaging in the traditions that make your family a family, but spending some time prior to the holiday to mark this year as just a little different, because it is. And in doing so, no matter how varied your emotional journeys, whomever is sitting around your table, you'll work together on sharing a meaningful experience. In the Jewish tradition, upon surviving a life-threatening experience, it's customary for Jewish people to recite something called the Gomel prayer. It's a prayer about gratitude for surviving a journey. And I realize that when I say something like that, how many physically have not survived? And mentally, how many are trying to desperately hang on? I still have a feeling that this journey will be longer than expected. The mental, emotional ramifications of this global pandemic, I think they're far from over. And so in terms of our reunions and our returns over this holiday season, may we learn to be patient with our own progress, knowing that we're individually and collectively on a journey of repair, some on a quicker pace than others. And when we understand that that pace is different, that it's varied, then I also suggest that we offer each other and ourselves a little forgiveness, that the upcoming reunions will certainly look and feel different than we want and expect. So instead of putting stress on our shoulders or on others to plan the very best holiday dinner or tablescape or worship service, I pray that we take these holidays to relearn how to hold each other, allowing space for our hesitation and our unparalleled states of readiness. I think then perhaps in our reuniting, A road will be revealed in which we can finally acknowledge the diversity of the travelers, the range of our emotional baggage, and the shared commonality of praying to journey just a little bit further. So let this holiday season be one in which we make space for each other and remind ourselves that there's still room for me at the table. I may look a little different. I may feel a little different, but thank God, our seat is still there. Amen. Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm happy. I don't know what happens next. I'm happy to engage in conversation.
Well, we're going to open it up for questions. I just want to say one quick thing to you, Nicole. And
Please.
that, you know, Winnicott talked a lot about the good enough mother.
That's right.
And all of us were good enough mothers because we're human beings and we all made mistakes and failed our children in different ways at different times and gave our children gifts and wisdom. But everyone is a good enough mother or father who has a child.
That's right.
Yeah.
And every day we have to remind ourselves of that.
And I love what you said about being forgiving of ourselves. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
So any questions?
Or thoughts or, yeah, right, please.
Thoughts or comments, please feel free. Just raise your hand and we'll call on you.
Or any, please. Mitch, are you raised? Yeah.
Yes, I'm not having any problem getting back into society. But my question is my son who lives with me and about 7-8 months ago had a very psychotic break and is very slowly recuperating from that. And every day I try to engage with him and it's very difficult because he doesn't talk. And prior to this, he's had this for 10 years, but he was slowly getting better with the proper meds. And so after this psychotic break, he just doesn't talk and he paces. And so every day is a new day that I try to create the space and nothing new really happens. I'm very patient with it, but it's frustrating and I'm a very impatient kind of person and I'm trying to be more patient. And do you have any suggestions for approaching this 31-year-old who just seems almost in a different world?
I'm pretty sure everyone around this conversation would have suggestions in terms of your son. I'm not an expert in terms of the suggestions to give your son, but Mitch, I just want to emphasize something that I offered in the talk, and what Sharon mentioned is that idea of self-forgiveness. That even in you saying that you're not an impatient person, the way I'm hearing you, it seems like your patience is boundless. I'm impressed by your patience.
Oh, thank you. Well, it breaks almost every day for 5 minutes. But
pretty impressive. That's
Thank you.
incredibly impressive.
I need all the support and encouragement. But it's like each day, and I'm sure most of us have this at home or with their loved one. That's why we belong. We belong to NAMI is to get the support, but also to get some ideas on how to approach this. And you're right, it's not just my son, it's making sure I stay strong too with this. But
I don't know if go ahead, Erin.
Well, I know we have our support groups that meet very often. So I put that link in the chat for yourself or for anyone else here. Those are great, and you can always drop in if you need that additional support. And then specifically right around this time with the holidays, Sharon wrote a wonderful blog about some really tangible tools about how to deal with your loved one and how to manage expectations during the holiday season. So maybe Sharon, you could share some of those specific tools that you wrote in that blog. That might be really helpful for Mitch and everyone else here on the call. Thank you. Steph actually also put that link to the blog in the chat box. So if you'd like to read it, that's there too.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with our Rabbi Nicole. I think you have incredible patience and you're devoted to your son. And I'm just wondering if you could lower your expectations and not expect him to talk and maybe read to him. Read to him something that you think he might have an interest in. Just read, and he may look like he gets it, but it's a way to communicate with him.
Mhm.
And just acknowledge any of your mixed feelings. And it's okay for you to feel ambivalent. It's okay for you to sometimes feel impatient. But you have to keep your expectations realistic. You've got to kind of lower your expectations of him. Supporting his choices not to speak would be helpful. He has every right not to speak. And this may go on for 6 months, but it may not, you know. And you might ask him, is there anything you'd like to share with me? I'm here if you would. You don't have to talk at all, but if there's anything to share, you certainly can. Or you might ask him a question, is there any way I could help you handle stress? I'm your dad, I love you. Is there any way I could help you handle stress?
Right.
You know, I'm just going to read this quote because it's kind of a spiritual night. At
Thank
the
you.
end of my blog is this quote. It's from poet Cahill Gibran. Your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but they are not of you. And though they are with you, yet they belong not to you. You may give them your love, but not your thoughts. You may house their bodies, but not their souls, for their souls dwell in the house of tomorrow, which you cannot visit, not even in your dreams. So
Very interesting, Sharon.
you just have to make space for his differentness, for his quietness, and maybe read to him.
For the fact that he does nothing all day.
Well, he's allowed to do that for as long as he needs to do that, and eventually he'll get tired of doing nothing. If it's it takes a year or two to heal from a psychotic illness. It takes a year or two for the neurotransmitters of the
Right.
brain to come back together and begin to function okay. So
Yes, he was doing so well after about 6 or 8 years, and then after this 3-day psychotic break where he didn't sleep and turned into a robot. You told me this before, Sharon. It takes about a year to a year and a half, and I guess we're almost starting over again. Is what.
Right.
that's right.
So I need to realize that. I thought, wow, we could just jump this, restart this again. But maybe you're right. It's another year and a half to get.
No, you're probably starting it over again.
Yeah.
You probably are. And I'm so sorry, Mitch. I've known you for years.
Thank you. Well, I think the lowering of the expectations. I try to do that, but try harder.
I mean, what sounds beautiful, Mitch, is that your son, in whichever way, he knows that you're there. And so whatever fashion you approach him or not, he knows that you're there. And I think that goes a very long way.
Thank you.
So anybody else have some comments tonight for the rabbi?
I had a question. Yeah, Rabbi, I'm just so impressed that you opened up the mental health center at the temple. And I'm just wondering what kind of response you've gotten from the community and how it's being sort of used, or are the programs not totally launched yet?
Sinai Temple. Let's just tell her it's at Sinai Temple.
At Sinai Temple, yes. I'm sorry, I didn't say the whole name of the temple.
Thank you, Tim. Oh, no, I'm just so thrilled. We have officially launched. And so some of the things that the synagogue is offering, I mean, first of all, when I said the idea of welcome home, standing by the doors of the sanctuary, that startled a few people. And they realized, oh, I actually need to process this a little bit more about what it means to re-enter my place of worship, a place that I used to call my second home, where I spent more time here than I did, actually in my own physical home. And so what we're offering through the mental health center is the chance to have one-on-one consultations with our social worker. It's not long-term therapy, but this is a chance to meet up to 3 times to individually process whatever emotions are kind of coming up in this time of reentry. So we offer those one-on-ones. Right now, we officially launched our bereavement groups, which we haven't had bereavement groups in a very long time at Sinai Temple. So I'm thrilled that we're able to offer that. We're starting to offer kind of drop-in COVID processing groups. And that's really interesting because as we are all realizing, I think each week looks a little different here. Last week looked different than this week, and, different news articles or mandates may bring up different feelings for us. And so our social workers starting to offer those processing groups. And I mentioned this before the Zoom started, but other groups are starting, cancer survivor groups. She's starting psychoeducation about mental illness and mental health. Exactly what we're doing here, in a sense, what it means to live with a loved one with, mental health struggles, what it means for you as a caregiver, all of the above. So I'm just thrilled that this is happening under the auspices of a place of worship. And what we've learned is that often someone who is struggling with their mental health will visit a place of worship first, seeking out help from a clergy person. And often that clergy person, as I've experienced in the past, doesn't always know where to turn or what to offer next. And so I see the mental health center as a starting point to destigmatize speaking about mental health and mental illness. But then it's a launching off. It's a jump. Exactly the fact that we have this kind of partnership with NAMI. How exciting is it for me that I know exactly where to turn or who to turn to now? And someone just has to walk through our doors, and they won't be left alone in their struggle. They won't be left alone in their journey. So that's one piece. I just want to offer another piece because I just think it's incredible. Our mental health center is open to our staff. And, you think about the staff and administration who they are certainly, I'm so hesitant to use like the phrase first responders, but the fact is they're kind of the first face that our congregants see. And so whatever our congregants have faced, they're immediately, interfacing with our staff. Well, our staff is us. We've all been through this together. And so for our staff who have been sick with COVID or have gone through COVID loss or perhaps struggling with their own issues of anxiety or depression or mental illness within their family, I'm just thrilled that they have somewhere to go.
I would love that you.
Oh, I'm sorry, Tim, what did you say?
Well, I was saying I love that you offered that vulnerability, when you were talking about the high school reunion. And yes, it blows me away that it was canceled, but that's really,
Right.
That's leading by example, and that's awesome. Your community gets to see that, and that you're also tending to your staff. I love that.
Thank you. Thank
you
you. And that there's no shame. It's
Right.
there's no shame in being ourselves.
I was going to say our leadership does the same thing, and I really appreciate that. Aaron.
I have a question, Rabbi. How is this different than a congregant just going to see the clergy? Because the clergy, as far as I've always thought, and I belong to Temple Israel of Hollywood for the last 25 years, I always thought that the clergy is there somewhat as a psychologist also to, if you're having marital problems or if you're having problems with your kid or something, they're always there. How is your program different than just a one-on-one talking with you or a different rabbi there?
It's a great question, Mitch. It's actually the reason why I decided to get my master's in marriage and family therapy. I would meet with congregants every day who would come to me and ask me about exactly what you said, advice about family or marital issues, or struggling, like I said before, with depression or anxiety. And I would think to myself, Nicole, you have experience as a rabbi, life experience as a rabbi, but you are not a therapist who can offer therapeutic interventions, really you need to stop here. And so that's kind of where I would say clergy, kind of the line is drawn, that clergy, I believe, are empathetic, active listeners, and we hold a confidential space for that listening to take place. Certainly, I think that we can offer a sense of spiritual counseling. What does it mean if you believe in God, to connect to God in this moment? What does your faith look like in a time of crisis? I think those are all conversations that clergy are equipped to engaging in. But then when it comes to more therapeutic interventions and kind of taking a deeper dive into one's trauma, if you will, I think that's well beyond the scope of a clergy person. And so that's where I think the mental health center is extremely beneficial. It's also where I think a clergy person should say, I would like to recommend a therapist. I'd like to give you, a list of referrals. Does that make sense? Did I answer your question, Mitch? I feel like there's a line drawn.
Or in my case, many years ago, I asked my rabbi about my marriage, and he recommended a very good divorce lawyer.
Okay.
He said, yes.
Well,
I think I can help you. He was right.
Okay.
So
there you go.
You know what your limits are.
That's the most important. I think for all of us, we need to know our limits. And I was sick of saying to myself, and I was sick of saying to others, you need to go find a therapist. Or I would say to myself, gosh, I just wish I was a therapist. My husband was sick of it. So he said, stop saying that, just go be a therapist.
Whoever wants some help with supervision, I do supervise people. I am a licensed.
Jared.
So I do supervise people who are getting their licenses.
Amazing. That's so good to know.
Yeah, I mean, we will talk a lot about how to relate to families with mental illness in their midst. But you're welcome to come to me for some supervision.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
I love all this collaboration happening. We're going to be helping with the Mental Wellness Center. We've got mentorship happening.
You're going to help me with my degree. Thank you.
Good thing.
I spent a year at the Maple Center interning.
I have a comment tonight.
I think Kathy.
You may like to share. Kathy?
Yeah, no, I have a question. I was wondering if it's coming up in the COVID discussion groups, or and just in conversation about how families are handling family members who refuse to be vaccinated, and is that an issue people are dealing with? And then I don't know, just what you would have to say about that. I mean, it's not. Well, I don't know if you consider it a mental health issue, but anyway, it's definitely conflict within families. And, even things like the holidays, like, do you just not have someone if they refuse? And then even things like life cycle things coming up later, not just the holidays, like weddings, things like that. I mean, how do you draw?
Question, Kathy, and what would you say, Nicole?
Yeah.
Kathy, that is, it is probably the hardest conversation we're having as clergy right now. It is the hardest conversation we're having as clergy, because you hit it on the head. I mean, on one hand, as clergy, we want to be as open and welcoming as possible. You want to lower barriers to have a welcoming community. On the other hand, you want to create the safest environment possible. And those are constantly the conversations we're having. Is this safe? Is this welcoming? Which one kind of wins? I will tell you unequivocally, the Jewish community stands by vaccinations. We've put it in the phrase of pikuach nefesh, which means the saving of a life, the saving of a soul. We're taught that if you save one life, it's as if you saved an entire world. And that's what we hold by. And so, Kathy, I'm not going to pretend that this is easy. It is so incredibly hard. And what we're saying is we are open to meeting with every congregant one-on-one, having those kinds of conversations, and at the same time, drawing the boundaries that we need to draw to create a safe environment.
Thank
And
you.
that may be the same for you, for those who are having dinners, wherever it may be. Look, some of the conversations we're also having are, can some of these things be outside? Can some of these things be outside to kind of open up that welcoming nature? If that's possible, great. We're kind of lucky in Southern California that we're able to have that conversation. But other times you have to, and this is in life, right? You have to draw boundaries and stick to them.
I can tell you how I handle it because my daughter refuses to get vaccinated. So I love my daughter and I'm very connected to her. So I make her get the test before she comes to my home. The test that she does not have any element of the virus.
Mm.
Whenever I'm with her, I make her get a new test. I'm not with her all the time because she lives in Colorado. And I've had so many conversations with her and cannot convince her to get vaccinated. Cannot.
Well, and I think what you just said, Sharon's important too, is that, it's now been how many months since we've had the vaccination available. What we're also realizing as clergy is that some people cannot be convinced. And so it may not be worth the exertion of that kind of energy. Almost what you said about expectations, Sharon.
Yeah.
That you may not be able to change the person's mind as much as you want to change them.
So true. So true.
Also, just on a side note, we have a warm line through Cal Hope and FEMA as a response to COVID. So we have trained CCP crisis counselors that are on our warm line. So if these questions come up during the week, or Kathy, if you or another loved one need somebody to talk to, they can call the office or our crisis line, our warm line, and talk. We have lots of counselors who are actually, some of which are on our call. Cynthia, thank you so much for your work, and Gigi, thank you for your work. And if there's anyone else that I'm missing, just we really appreciate all the outreach efforts. So Rabbi Nicole, you're going to get another email about our Cal Hope team. So lots of support on those topics too. And just while I'm thanking people, I also want to thank Janice Black Warner again for making these talks possible, so we can bring people like yourself in to really shed light on these topics. It's so important. And all of you coming today, and like you were saying about the reunion, like we come as we are. So just, thank you for everyone coming as they are this evening. But yeah, there is support with those specific issues, Kathy, from around COVID.
Good.
So any other comments for the rabbi? Any other shared thoughts? Well, if there's
Cynthia.
Thank you. It was wonderful. I just wanted to tell you that, Rabbi. It really touched our hearts, what you said. Right now, we just got approved for the 5 to 11-year-olds. I know you have several nursery school programs and school, and I know a lot of parents that are going there, and they're a little concerned. Are you having a special meeting with them so they are more knowledgeable and they feel safe? How are you handling this?
Yeah, thank you. My own children, go to the school, and they're exactly in that age range. I have a 10-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 5-year-old. And so, yes, we actually just had an incredible meeting with our medical task force team, and we're speaking through, what will the next year of education look like, and who do our parents need to hear from? Who exactly should they be hearing from? So we've been speaking about the ideas of having meetings with both our medical task force team, bringing in the mental health center, speaking with clergy, and realizing that for some, I think this is really important. For some, this couldn't come fast enough, right? Some people, including my own family, we've called the pediatrician's office and we've asked when's the first appointment. Other families, which I respect, have said, let me breathe for a second. We want to do it. But just give me a second to breathe and understand what this means. And so we're kind of what we said, I think, with Aaron, what you just kind of referenced before, we're taking people as they're emotionally at right now, and letting them know you're part of the conversation. You're part of the knowing, by the way, Cynthia, that probably in a year, this is going to be a state mandate for every school. So there's that piece, but that's also knowing that we have this ample time to help prepare our community, and really, I think, do this in a loving way.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think Gigi.
Hi. I just wanted to, I think what you were saying about this sort of spirituality, or maybe that's what I heard, of doing holidays. I was raised a Catholic, but I've always been amazed at how beautiful the Jewish celebrations are in terms of really connecting in this deep way. And so, with my loved one who has a mental health disorder, it can be it's so stressful and so difficult that for me to try to calm it all down never works. But it's really like bringing in the spirituality element, which I just wanted you to talk a little bit more about in terms of it's kind of creating a serenity in a holiday that's, full of possibly stressful interchanges.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if this is exactly what you're saying, but it's actually, it's something that I feel like as a rabbi, we struggle with every holiday in that sense, that there's so much there's heightened expectation as to what a holiday should look like, or what. So maybe I'm speaking, if it looks like you're nodding your head, so I think I'm speaking towards, we're aligned in that sense, that you think of Christmas or you think of Hanukkah, and it's okay, every night has to be a particular way, and there's holiday parties, and we need to decorate, and we need to have this kind of food, and if we don't do it this way, then you're not really celebrating the holiday. And so what we've tried really hard as just a family, trust me, we try to bring this into the congregation as well, but even on a microcosm of just my family of 5, we sat down with our kids and we said, let's be honest, you ask any Jewish kid what their favorite holiday is, even kids of rabbis, they all say Hanukkah. Okay, we tried so hard. Okay, we've tried really, really hard. We make every holiday fun, but they still like Hanukkah, and you can all guess why. But we also spent a lot of time this past week in preparation of Hanukkah to talk about ways that we want to give back. And so we spent 2 separate dinners discussing. One was, we're going to spend a night of Hanukkah and go in each of our rooms. And that's going to be the gift night. We're going to go into our rooms and figure out what it is that we want to give to someone else. And then we also said, we're going to look at our piggy banks, and that's another night, and decide, as a family, what's one charity as a family that we want to give to. And so it's taking 2 nights and that for some kids, that's a big deal. 2 nights out of those 8 nights. And that's what Hanukkah is. And so what I like about that too, is that when I mentioned this before, we're creating a new tradition together. We haven't done those before. We're creating a new tradition together that we think speaks to a piece of the holiday. And so it could be, Gigi, with your loved one, that what's something that you can share in together, that you can create together, that's not dealing with the hoopla of everything else, but like you said, adds to the spirit of the holiday, and speaks to the 2 of you. Create something new for you and your loved ones this year. I mean, Mitch, I think of you and your son, and maybe for Hanukkah, it's you lighting the Hanukkah, and whether or not your son responds or not, you're sharing that. He'll see the light with you. You're sharing in that experience together.
Good. Thank you. Maybe I'll get him a present.
Maybe I'll get him a present.
Sure.
Hey, thank you so much for that. That was beautiful, Rabbi. Beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
I'm going to do that for Hanukkah myself. with my daughter and grandson. I'm
But I'll report back how it goes, you know.
So any more comments or any
Well,
thoughts?
yeah.
Yes.
Am I muted?
You're unmuted. We can hear you.
Yeah. So, Rabbi Nicole, your presentation was very uplifting spiritually, emotionally, and educationally.
Thank
And it was really, you're very skillful at integrating all of those elements into your being, if you will. And I was particularly impressed when you talked about how you decided to get your license and you knew the life experiences you've had as a rabbi clearly qualify you to be a quote therapist, but recognize the boundaries there and decided to go forward and get your license and make that official. And I think that you're going to be a great therapist. Most people do not get the life experiences that you'll bring with you into your MFC program. And I look forward to being able to follow you and welcome you to the NAMI community.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. That means really the world to me. Thank you. And truly, I would love to be in touch with all of you. I'm on Instagram. I'm Rabbi Guzik on Instagram or Rabbi Guzik on Facebook, and I'd love to be connected with you. Really, it was such a pleasure. I can tell this is a very, very warm, welcoming community. Thank you.
I think you just got 25 new followers for sure.
I don't know. That's nice. Thank you. Thank you. And I'm looking at all the comments. Thank you all so much.
Okay. Hi, Rabbi. This is Janice Black. I'm on Janice Blackmore on my husband Doug's phone in the car.
Hello.
I love you. Thank you. I just have to say that many of my friends met their spouses at your Jewish singles nights on Friday, Shabbat. Used to have lots of nights. And what is your suggestion? A lot of my friends have a lot of single daughters in their early 30s, and
Well, guess
what is your yes,
it's still on. We have our incredible yes, we have our incredible Friday Night Live. It's the Ted and Hetty Orden and Family Friday Night Live for it's for any Jews in their 20s and 30s, but still, as you mentioned, often singles find their bashert there. So it's the second Friday night of the month. Please, I'll put, I mean, you probably already know this, but I'm going to put our website here.
Nothing for Jews in their 40s or 50s.
I know, Tim.
Oh,
It's our. I know. I know.
Life is over.
No, it's not over. It's not over. Trust me. We also get, individual emails all the time saying, okay, I'm this age, 42, looking for this, looking for that. Feel free to send them my way too. But in particular, if you know in their 30s, send them my way.
You guys had a cult following there, and I have to say, so many of my friends, and I used to go visit and with my friends, and it was just beautiful, your services. And but it's really hard right now because a lot of people, all my single friends from 20s to their 60s, they've been single the last year, and I think they're afraid to come back into the world of dating. And I think there's more to dating than the app, swipe left, swipe left. It's not. And having an in-person spiritual service makes it even better. And I'm so glad that Friday Night Live is still back on. And but a lot of these young people, honestly, like Sharon said with her daughter, and I know a lot of my daughter, and a lot of them do not believe in the vaccine, and so therefore they can't come into the service.
That's really hard. You're right. That is very hard. And I agree with you. I think being in person is so much better. We had this past month for Friday Night Live, we had our first meal back, and they didn't want to leave. I mean, security was kicking them out. It was 10 o'clock. They're like, please, you have to leave the building. You can't stay here any longer. And I think there's such a craving and desire to be together. So even though it was awkward, I think for a lot of these, 20s and 30s who haven't been together in a while, you could sense a little bit of awkwardness. By the end, they were so happy to finally, have Shabbat dinner together. So please, though, encourage them, send them my way. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
And thank you so much for helping to put on this program. Thank you.
No, and Aaron and Sharon and Tim and all our NAMI family, we're so grateful to have you as a partner on board. And we all need you. We all need each other. Life is not easy. It's complicated, and having your expertise and thank you, Sharon, for helping her with, my daughter just became a trauma certified therapist as well. It's not easy. It's a lot of work, but thank you for all your energy and thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
Oh, I want you to know that we have this speaker series because of Janice Black Warner. This is her speaker series. She is funded. We're so grateful to Janice. And so she has made a lot in NAMI possible. So we're very grateful to you, Janice, and thank you.
Well, you know what? We couldn't do it without you, Sharon. We love you. You are our leader of all. You are so wonderful, and I'm so blessed to have you in my life and all of my NAMI family. And Mitch, thank you for sharing. My son was in the hospital a couple weeks ago for 2 weeks as well, and it's really hard. But you know what? I learned through UCLA, the brain takes a long time to heal.
That's right.
And it takes a long time, and I guarantee you he'll be back better than ever. It's just very slow.
Okay.
And
I
promise you,
Please send me that guarantee, Janice.
I promise you, I've been there. It's my son too. He's back, and it will. It just takes time and faith, and lots of faith. I promise you.
And Rabbi, I'll talk to Temple Israel about what you're doing. Maybe Temple Israel of Hollywood could do something like that.
Thanks, Mitch. I think that would be fantastic. I'm also thrilled that through Board of Rabbis in Los Angeles, we're collaborating together and trying to figure out different ways. Maybe some of you know Rabbinite Alyssa Thomas Newborn, but she is a big advocate of mental health in the Orthodox community. I've been working with Rabbi Matt Shapiro at Temple Beth Am in terms of mental wellness within that community. So I love that we're collaborating, and this is the issue that we're collaborating on. It couldn't be a better issue. So that would be fantastic because I love your rabbis there too. So it would be fantastic.
They're doing a Jewish yoga and a Jewish mindfulness. The new director, Zach Lasker, he used to be.
I know Zach really well.
Yeah, he used to be at Camp Ramah for several years, and he's the executive director. So
I was at Camp Ramah as a staff person when Zach was.
I'll tell him to contact you.
Tell him I said hello, and I would love to collaborate. That would be great.
I will.
And I love the small Jewish world.
Thank you.
We want to thank you so much, Rabbi Nicole.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you.
We are so grateful for you to bring this touch of spirituality and openness. And listening to you, I think everyone in this audience feels hope, feels present, feels possible. There is possibilities happening that will heal our families and heal our adult children, our siblings, our parents who are struggling with mental health issues. I think all of us feel hope from your presence. Thank you so much. So if there's no more comments, we're going to bring the meeting to a close. And I just want to announce about the speaker series, the 1st of December. We are having speak Dr. Karen Wilson, who is a neurologist, a pediatric neurologist. And she's going to be talking about neurological issues in adolescents, teenagers that could lead to mental illness, and how to manage someone going off to college so they don't get mentally ill, because so many people do go off to fine universities and come home with a mental illness. So I think it'll be very interesting to listen to a pediatric neurologist, because she will talk to us about signs you may have noticed when your child was, 10, 11, and 12 that led to this mental illness. We call humans who have signs in their adolescence prodromal brains, vulnerable to a mental illness. And so we'll learn a lot about that in the December Speaker Series with Dr. Karen Wilson. And happy
Thank you.
Thanksgiving to all of you. And
Thanksgiving.
I'm thankful for all of you, and we're so thankful to you, Nicole, for being.
Oh, I'm just grateful. Thank you to all of you for inviting me. I'm grateful for this community. And I think I heard it from someone else just prior. A happy Thanksgiving to everyone. May it be a season of real gratitude.
And also, we're so happy to have this new partnership with Sinai Temple and with you. So
Yes, you'll be hearing from us, Rabbi Guzik.
I look forward to it. Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Rabbi Nicole.
for
Thank you.
attending.
Bye. Thank you.
Be well,
Thank you.
everyone. We're grateful for you.
Bye.
All right.
Tim.
Wait.
Right. You.
Wow.
Night.
Lovely.
Yeah, lovely. Night, Steph. Thanks. That I really appreciated you putting all those links in, if you're still there.
Yeah, we loved having you attend tonight, Steph. We loved it.
All right. I actually haven't had dinner, so I'm gonna sign off.
Yeah, either
Uh,
have I.
Okay.
Tim, will you make sure you keep the recording?
Yes,
Thank you.
yes, Aaron.
I appreciate
got it.
that. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Sharon, have a good night. She was great, man. I
Isn't she
love her.
fabulous?
She's awesome.
We've had some long chats over Zoom and just really bonded. Yeah, she's fantastic.
She's
Yeah.
so warm and generous spirited. So warm.
Yeah.
Well, Erin, is there anything we have to discuss? Because I haven't had dinner either.
No, let's all go have dinner.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's have dinner.
Yeah.
Hi, Steph.
Hi, Steph.
Hi.
Thanks so much for putting those links in. We really
Oh my gosh,
appreciate it.
happy to. I loved her. She was amazing.
Oh,
Yeah.
wait, I should probably stop the recording now.